for you tonight, and I had such a great time talking to you, AV, and talking to you when we were chatting on the phone the other day, just about general UFO experiences, and we were throwing around different theories, and we were talking about your own experiences, and it always fascinates me to be able to talk to someone who's an experiencer, as both you, AV, and Philomena are. But before we start asking you questions, I thought it might be fun to play the trailer for your feature documentary, Alien Abduction, which we're screening at Midwest Weird Fest in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, March 5 to 7. Next month. We're almost there. So, Jen, do you want to play Alien Abduction? The trailer?
I'll go ahead
awesome.
and play it.
We had just experienced a full-on, memories included, alien abduction.
AV's like, what just happened? Tell me everything.
Alien abduction. Are you experienced? It's time.
We felt at peace.
Come and take us. We're not.
We felt at peace.
The belly acres. We represent.
Like we had been preparing our whole lives.
Mankind with contracts to be signed. Flying through outer space.
We felt at peace.
A flying saucer's got no seatbelts, baby.
Like we had been
space trucking.
Preparing our whole lives.
Are you experienced? Nothing but me and you.
Imagine an event so extraordinary.
They sound like crazy people.
It would change your identity forever.
I fully believe in that.
And
as crazy as this may seem, what you're about to watch is real.
They've taken us to some far off.
The event itself may have been pre-planned centuries prior.
Walls are ceiling.
You tell they're little guys. You call some people with this kind of information and they run away. Try to find some answers. Try to find some help.
You want to see alien abduction.
I know I sound just like him, but I can assure you I am not Bob.
And then I went off planet with Andy.
They also time travel. Everybody would look frozen. So you literally could fly around and grab a Coke out of someone's hand and put it in someone else's hand.
They can take you out of a moving car and put you back in.
Then all of a sudden you were on a spacecraft?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. If it didn't happen to me, I wouldn't believe it either.
Ah.
We're scared. We're freaked out.
Yeah.
Well, I know abductees often get flashbacks and things, so I wonder if that kind of watching that brings it brings it kind of back to you, I would think.
That more brings us back to a year ago when we filmed that with Jared at his studio. He was trying to crack us for 3 days. That's kind of what the film is about, which you can see by the end of it. I'm pretty much frazzled.
Oh,
but no, I'm just pretty mellow.
No, we were
my anxiety raised. Oh yeah, and then he did this and that. he was him and Philomena were plotting behind the scenes to get me real agitated.
No.
And then she'd tell me at night, but then the next day they'd be able to do it like that, bam. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. So that's what I flashed back to those. It got a lot of stuff out, the process of the filming, but it was an intense process. That's what I flashed back there.
Well, since we're talking about that now, I was going to start by having you both talk about the actual abduction experience, but maybe we'll get to that in a minute instead, because we've started somewhere we were going to go anyway. Jen only watched the film today, and I know that she was quite, well, you talk about it. I don't want to put words into your mouth. You say how you felt about that whole experience of Jared, being very almost, on the offensive when it came to the interviews.
Well,
and Jared Segal's the director of the documentary
of
the film, just for people who don't know. But Jen, why don't you say how you felt about that today when you were watching it?
I was actually kind of emotional. It really bothered me because I suffer from anxiety disorder as well. So just watching you just stressed me out. It really bothered me. And then there was the part where he was just kind of probing you guys back and forth with the questions. And then with Philomena, it's like she couldn't remember things like you remember things. And usually people, when they have traumatic experiences, they're not going to remember it just like the other person. Sometimes there's like disassociation. So I know when I've had traumatic experiences, I have fragments. I don't remember like other people do. So I was kind of feeling your vibe, I guess. Yeah.
I think you talked about when he was talking about diameter of a tubing, and and our stories matched on the diameter of the tubing. It wasn't. They still matched. There was tubing and where it was going and where it was. It was just the diameter of it. So that was like drama that he created,
Yeah.
which really it makes it hard for us to watch because it's.
Yeah.
I don't think Philomena's watched the entire thing in one sitting.
Yeah.
Just parts of it. But we help with the editing, because there were some scenes in there, that makes us look too crazy. But it was a lot of fun. So we did watch it multiple times, and then since like a year ago, we haven't watched it at all.
Yeah.
That's a real strength of the documentary, actually, the way that it is so skeptical earlier on when Jared's investigating the story, because it's so common for paranormal or UFO type documentaries to be very just openly believing. So I think there's something to be said for that more skeptical, admittedly almost aggressive approach that Jared takes in his doubting, but it makes it a different film to a lot of other films which are out there in this kind of arena.
Well, when the first incident happened to us, we weren't UFO anythings, didn't know anything about UFOs. Like the general public, I believed, they must happen all the time if you believe in UFOs, and if you don't, abductions don't happen, right? So we always believed, both of us, maybe, I don't know if we talked about, but we always kind of believe there's got to be something else in the universe, and there's lots of evidence, right?
Yeah.
So our view of abductions was kind of like the general public. Oh yeah, this happens all the time. After we were abducted, we were looking for some answers. So the first thing we did was, who else was abducted? What's their story? And I think I sent you 7 UFO stories in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Not a single abduction. Every one of those stories, nobody was put on a craft. One guy died, another guy got some pancakes, right? I mean, there's some really interesting stories, but there were no abductions in the 7 stories in Wisconsin. And if you go back all the way to the Barney and Betty Hill story, they remembered a month after the event. They didn't remember like we did in real time. So that's one thing that's kind of unique, and it kind of scares us in a sense that, well, this isn't happening all over the place. It's I sent you some pictures of the UFO bar. That it's a bar in Dundee, Wisconsin. You had a film a year or 2 ago called the Dundee Project, where a gentleman went there and he talked to all the people who had seen UFOs in the area, right? Mm-hmm. Now, me and Philly went to the bar and we asked the bartender after we went with a photographer when he went to the can, because we didn't tell him that we were abducted, but he wanted to go there because I had a UFO. It's a long story, but so he goes to the can and he's showing us the pictures of all the UFO pictures people in the area taken, and he's got hundreds and hundreds in these photo books. And I asked, well, has anybody ever been abducted? And he goes, no. He said there's one guy who aliens visit him in his bedroom, and then he thinks this would be the owner of the bar. His name's Benson. He thinks that maybe an alien visited him in his bedroom, or it was a dream or something. But but nobody's been put on a craft and flown off the planet.
Well, that's a good segue into something where I was going to actually start the interview with. And could you just talk us through the primary abduction experience that you had? Like, can you can you start it from, I guess you were initially, the two of you were seeing a concert, I think, in Madison, and then you left and you started driving back to Fond du Lac. Is that right? Could you kind of pick it up from when you're driving back and what took place in the time that followed?
Do you want to maybe tell them what happened up to the time we blacked out?
Well, you can say it.
Okay.
It's okay.
We had just left an all-night truck stop, and we drank like a pot of coffee, so we were wide awake. We're cigarette smokers, so I lit a cigarette when we hit the highway, and about the time it went out and I put it out, we were driving and there was nobody on the road. There was complete cloud cover. Real low clouds, where you can kind of see them when there are lights along the highway. You can see the cloud cover. And later we discovered it was a new moon night, meaning the no moon. That's the night where the moon's completely covered. So it was very dark. And we had seen a car come by, and then it was dark, nothing coming towards us. We're headed towards an overpass, a double lane overpass highway. And as about the time we got maybe 100 yards away or a little closer, somewhere between a football field, we blacked out. And it was when I woke up, I was hooked to a machine, like the little character that I showed with my arms outstretched. And I couldn't see downward, but I could see down on the floor. So that's how I estimated the diameter of the tubing. As a tube on the floor is this big, so it must be about this big. So, I could get that wrong. So but anyways, I could see the tubing, and the room that we were in, the front third of it was either glass or a transparent material, because you could see outside. The objects between me and the glass was a giant screen. I could make out the edges of the screen and the framework that picked it up, but it was just a transparent screen. On the transparent screen, I could see a Zoom style teleconference going on, but in 3-dimensional. I've seen screens like this that they sometimes use in newscasts and stuff, where it's a 3D clear screen. I don't know what they're called, but this one was about probably about 20 feet high and about 50 feet long, if I was to guess from where I was. Again, I was in somewhat of a drug state, like kind of like I'm dreaming, but then I could feel stuff going in and out, and I could sense the time. It was I would say about somewhere between 3 to 5 Earth hours had passed. And inside each of these dots, and when I say 3D, like a normal call, like here there's 3 flat screens. This would be all these little screens with screens behind them that keep going forever. But each one with a unique gray alien, like from here to here. And I could hear what was going on, but it was telepathic. And there were so many voices, it sounded like a drone of zzz. So that was pretty freaky. And Philomena, in the meantime, was right down here, and she was looking up at me and witnessing what was happening to me. And I knew the first time I became conscious enough to really think, I said, well, she's my witness. That's why she's here. So it was pretty. There's a lot of things that led up to this event that triggered us to make us feel comfortable. But for now, we'll just kind of talk about what the event. Because we both, we were supposed to be here and we were trained to be here. That's the way we felt.
And Philomena, I know one thing that the documentary makes a point of demonstrating is the experience from your perspective as well. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how that experience played out from your angle, so to speak?
I guess the aliens picked the wrong witness, because I don't like to talk about it. So like I don't know. I just get so nervous about it. But it's like,
do you think do you get nervous because it brings back bad memories? Is that the
not so much bad memories. I just see it in my mind. So it's hard to describe because I just get so nervous. But, sorry.
Well, to interject here,
Sure.
we don't just really talk about this that often, not at all. It's something that's kind of scary for us. We got enough stuff going on, so like today we're like, well, we're gonna do this interview. Well, we better get ready. But to help your listeners with the again, what I saw out the window of the screen of the glass behind the screen was it looked to me like a moonscape, and there were mountains off in the distance on the left side of my vision. On the right it looked like craters and a grayish white sandy type lunar surface, and then beyond that it was like outer space, not like you'd see on our planet at night, like you could see an edge and then stars like blink. And I thought we were on a moon. Philomena thinks it was a planet. Okay, but the facility that we were in looked like it was like thrown up and just operational. To describe that, now the aliens during that first abduction made sure we did not see them. Okay, I could see there was a screen over on I describe what was on the left side of the viewers see my like the right, but the left side, I should go like that. The left side, on the left side of my field, I was a half dome of glass that went over to one point, and then where that stopped, it was all black. But I could see behind that far right corner of the screen was a control booth that was in a shroud, and I could make there was more than one being in that control booth, and I could see the tubing was like it was a lot of tubes, like about 24 to 36 tubes all over the floor, with light going one way on some of them and the other way on the other ones. You could see which ones were flowing towards always and the ones flowing out, but it was splattered across the floor. Like if you did this regularly, you'd have them all neat and tied up and to it, but you wouldn't just throw them all over the floor. Quick, run them up to them. That's what it looked like. It looked like they ran all these tubes up to me, and it was a sprawling mess, and whatever was there was going to be taken out of there as soon as we left. Did I describe that right?
Yeah.
If you have a film studio that you're going to film always, well, I do this all the time. We abduct people all the time. You would have that would be a nice, tidy connections there, but it was a mess. And so that tipped me off right away. Again, I was conscious enough to really think and see and observe. When they came to get us off the machine, they took us into the left side of the facility, and that we walked on our own, but we didn't walk on our own. I don't know how to describe it. It was like unconscious, but walking, and that was all dark and shrouded, and we were brought into a holding facility that looked like a saucer could fit in the bay. There wasn't anything in that facility. It was like the cleanest garage, and it had the area where we were on was a deck, and there was a deck on the opposite side that went around like a bay, and then there was an indentation there, like something was going to come in that we could walk in. But they blacked us out, and it was like they came out behind us, and it was almost like they touched, and then we blacked out, and then we woke up on the craft later in flight.
Something that interests me about your experience in the context of an historical comparison is you mentioned Betty and Barney Hill before, who were arguably the most famous abductees and certainly ground zero for the modern abduction phenomenon. And it's interesting that they were a married couple and you two are a married couple. And something that Jared, when he's, I guess, trying to push your buttons, and he failed when he tried this trick, but when he was trying to push your buttons in the documentary, brought out of just nowhere the idea that there was an age discrepancy between you two guys. Now, interestingly, and not that that bothers me at all, but interestingly, Betty and Barney Hill didn't have so much an age discrepancy, but there was a non-traditional aspect of their relationship as well, which was that she was white and he was black. So I wonder, I just can't help it because it's the way my mind works. I wonder if there's something about a couple that aren't exactly the same as what is the cultural norm attracting attention from elsewhere. I don't know if that's something that occurred to you or not, but it's something that just popped out and kind of hit me.
Well, I was surprised that Philomena was okay with even like making the movie. So there's got to be something like that. I mean, you know, if it happened to you and you're supposed to say, well, let's make a movie. Well, you know, if you look, we don't really have it up anywhere. And at this point, we're glad you're showing it because this is where we want it to be seen, you know, to a select group and they can talk about it and, you know, but rather than we want to go to the grocery store and stuff.
No, I get. I think something historically significant is there.
Something there, yes. That was my way of saying, yeah, I agree with you, man.
But I don't want to go. I'll be honest with you. The two things which struck me the most about your account as a UFO historian, I mean, that's literally what I'm academically trained in. So it's funny when I see some accounts, I don't find them particularly interesting, but I found your account very interesting. And I found that aspect of it particularly interesting. And what else fascinated me, and I was talking to Jen about this today, was when the abduction starts to when the abduction finishes, in our real, for lack of a better term, world, time seems to stop here. But where you go, there's 4 or 5 hours or 3 or 5 hours, whatever that time lapse is. And when you come back, you're right back in the car, seemingly maybe less than a second after you left. And why that interests me so much is why, while in UFO lore, people often talk about missing time, and then they try to make the correlation with old fairy tales where people talked about time distortion. What they're normally talking about in most UFO abduction accounts isn't really time distortion. What they're talking about is something happened to me and somehow I forgot 4 hours. I was napping on the couch and I woke up 4 hours later out in the backfield without my clothes on and with blood coming out of my nose. That's what they normally mean when they talk about missing time. But in your case, it's not so much missing time, but it's much more like traditional cultural examples from things like fairy lore, where when somebody went to the other world, time was different there to time here. And there's lots of, even the Rip Van Winkle story is a classic example. You know, he goes to sleep and he's gone for 100 years, or somebody dances in the fairy ring with the fairies and they think they're only dancing for, you know, half an hour, but they're actually dancing for days and days and days, and they dance themselves to death. So there's often this part of a broader historical narrative is when people encounter the other, whether it's extraterrestrial or whether it's an ancient fairy tradition or whether it's something else, that somehow time is very different in the world of the other to what's happening in the time of today. So that's something else that really fascinated me about your story.
Well, to get there, because I started smiling because I'm thinking, oh God, this is insane. But when we woke up on the craft, we didn't know anything about flying saucers or nothing. Okay, we were in a very tight space. And we were like this, okay? Philomena even comes right there. We're laying, you know, and in a tight spot. And I was looking out outside the craft. Philomena was looking inside the craft. So she was looking in at the reactor. She didn't have much to look at, but what I could see was like, I could see outer space moving by. Like the whole wall was transparent. It still had like a shade to it. I knew I was looking out of something like a window. And I found that quite strange. Now, when I did later research, you know, hey, what happened to us? You know, I went and two of the guys that I liked that there's a lot of data on. One is there's a lot of data on is Bob Lazar, and he's someone who, if your listeners know of, claims that he reverse engineered these crafts and he knows a lot about them. He's witnessed their flight. Now, number one, he said they're these small little crafts. When we were lying face to face, we were tilted at an angle of. I'm a visual guy, so we were lying like this, almost like leaning against a wall, up on a whatever that is, about a 45-degree angle. Now, Bob Lazar said the crafts, when they get into the flight where they can go past the speed of light years, they go up into that position. And there's a lot of film and pictures of UFOs in that position. And the people who have witnessed them say that when they're not in that position, they're very jaggedy flight. But when they're in that position, that's when they go, you know, and disappear off the, you know, go do right angle turns and that sort of thing. So that matched up right there. And then also Bob Bushman is a gentleman who worked for Lockheed Martin and was brought in, according to his story. And I sent you the link there. You can watch his video.
I did watch his video.
If you start right there, that's when he starts talking about his experiences. But he was brought in to look at the Roswell crash debris. And he has some stories about what happened at Roswell, which is very interesting. And he said that when these crafts fire up, if you're inside, the walls become transparent and you can see through them. And that freaked me out, you know, whoa, you know. But he also says they hike up on that. So we're in this craft and it's like we're falling and sliding at an angle, and stuff's moving out the window, and it's stars and planets and stuff, and like a field of them just going by, zing, 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 zing. And as we come down, they came and got us off the craft. Like we couldn't move, you know, but we were conscious, you know, and we found out later why, because in a few seconds we're going to be driving a car. Okay, so we're conscious, and they bring us out, and under the underpass, it's like the whole thing's lit up, and there's our Geo, and it's sitting. It's like frozen in time up on an angle, you know, and they took us down through the top. It's like got a removable top thingy, you know, and then we get all set in, and it was like as soon as my hands were like on the steering wheel, and Philly was next to me, and it's like just as soon as our body matched where our bodies were supposed to match, it went dink, and we were driving, and we're headed like going about 50 miles an hour, headed towards like this concrete and metal structure that separates the lanes, because they must have passed us out, and then we probably went out of control, and then when we got into the field of the craft, that's when we froze. There were two crafts there, so one could take off and one could stay there and keep time frozen. And anyways, when they took off, then we were, and what was weird, and this is, you know, I had light tubes coming in and out of me. This is one of the things they must have done is my body drove the car for the first quarter mile or so, half mile, until I got it under control. And it was up on wheels and doing S turns, and Philomena would be screaming in real life and she's just like, and then all of a sudden I get the car under control. The car gets under control, and all of a sudden I'm driving it now. I'm not watching my body drive it. I don't know how else to describe it. So they had programmed me to do that. So that was crazy stuff.
after having an experience like that, I mean, your whole perception, I'm imagining, has to change to a degree about reality and about the nature of the universe and your place in it. What kind of, I guess, psychic or psychological effect did that have on you guys after that experience?
Well, right when that happened, we were scheduled to go to a songwriter retreat, and we went there and we met this country artist who does Americana, but he was trained in rock and pop also, and he's like, come and record in Nashville, right? So we go down to Nashville, and he's got all these great players, and the next thing you know, I got a name for you, AV Super Sunshine and stuff. So that's what happened. So we were like, yeah, that makes sense to us. AV Super Sunshine, yeah.
Oh, that is fantastic. But that also though wasn't your only encounter though. Like, as much as that must have had that kind of impact we're talking about, you've had at least one other experience, right? How many other experiences have you had?
We've had one more abduction, and then we had a visit. And I sent you photographs of that, because
Did you want to put is that the ice lake?
Yeah, yes.
You can talk about it while Jen brings the photo up if you want to.
It. Okay.
About the landing on the ice lake.
Okay. All
Right. Now, during the second visit, we were trying to get this film going, and that was more or less to let us know that it's okay that it wasn't done and it wasn't happening, okay, yet, because the timing wasn't right. And then this last visit was in the winter, and it was a time when we were feeling not real positive about it. We hadn't finished the movie yet, and then they kind of showed up to say, hey, this is how fast we can be here. And at the second abduction, it happened in the middle of the night. We had, for some reason, fallen asleep at a couch in our room. It's a sunroom. And I had woken up, and I went to the bathroom, and then I looked at the time when I went into the bathroom, and on that one, when I came, all of a sudden something happened, and I became like I was sitting on the toilet and with clothes on, and then I was sitting on the toilet naked. Okay, and I went out, and I knew right away what happened. Oh, I can remember being on the craft, and I was butt naked, and I walked out. And there's a computer there that I looked at when I walked in, and it was exactly 2 hours to the exact minute later. And so that was kind of a weird one. But there they landed in the water at the end of our pier. It was a dead calm night, and they took us onto the craft there. So there was nothing there to see as far as the next day. But I remember during that, we need something more than just, these experiences that we've experienced. So the third visit, I knew one of the reasons was to leave those ice rings, which you saw, and at that point, I've seen some data. There's some people out there that said they've been multiply abducted through their bedroom. Okay. After the second abduction, when they cut after the first one, I will never going to see him again. After the second abduction, they're coming back, and I'm going to have to be ready, because I'm going to have some questions. I need some stuff, and so that that's one of the things. When I see somebody who says, "Oh, I've been abducted 1,000 times," well, did you ever go outside and look for where they landed? Once, I mean, so anyways, where I saw the thing land and take off, I knew there was rings on the ice, so I had that. I got those photos, but when they were there, I'm like, I need a picture of an alien. We're not staying that long, and so 2 days later, I got a picture of an alien sent to me.
Put that photo up, Jen.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
So that's
that photo
crazy.
got sent to you. Did you say, or did you say you took
that? Yeah. I can't tell you how I got it, but whoever had that picture was instructed to send it to someone else who knew me to send it to me. And we've been invited to go and meet that alien, but Philomena's chicken.
No, I won't.
It's very well protected. But that, because I wanted a picture of who's taking us. That's what I saw on the screen.
That begs so many questions. So you're saying you've had the opportunity to then go and have contact with the alien that people who are watching can see the photo of on screen at the moment?
But we have to travel outside of this country to a country that's we feel isn't quite safe for us. And we're not feeling traveling outside of the country. I mean, we're just being safe. Being safe.
And so that alien,
we drive everywhere now. We gotta go to California. Well, we'll just drive. Got all these freaking flyer miles. Oh, just drive.
but so that alien's meant to be situated somewhere. I mean, I can't let it go because I've got a photo of an alien in front of me. That alien's meant to be situated somewhere on the planet Earth at the moment, like it's physically based.
Yes. That's what we're told, that it was taken on a cell phone. It wasn't a high resolution cell phone. If you knew where it was from, you say, oh yeah, that makes sense. They still got those old Motorola flip phones back there, you know. And so it was taken on an older type phone, it's well protected.
And that's I know I was talking over you and cutting in a little bit, but I couldn't let it go. But you were saying that that's essentially what the entities look like that you saw on the screen when you were abducted the first time on the craft.
Right. And that's what we were instructed on the third visit. Because we were wondering if it was people from our government. But they'd have to have some pretty short guys.
Did you listen? Did you happen to listen to the Richard Doty episode of Talking Weird I mentioned to you? I think it's episode 9 of Talking Weird for anyone who wants to go back and listen.
I don't know if I did.
It's okay. No, it's just the Richard Doty actually. It's funny you should bring up the fact could it have been the government, because while Doty states that there are genuine extraterrestrials who I suppose may or may not engage in abductions, but he does talk about a branch of the Air Force having, I guess, almost an X-Files program. If anybody's seen season 3, episode whatever it is, Jose Chung's from Outer Space, where the US government has this abduction program where they dress people up as aliens and go in and trick people. Supposedly, there have been cases where our government has actually hoaxed UFO abductions. Interestingly, Doty says it isn't just to trick people. Normally it's used as an intelligence operation to get information out of somebody that they think's holding, a matter of state secrecy or a foreign government agent or something. But I think you might find that episode interesting, AV. Well, about the talk of alternative abduction experiences as well.
What you'll find interesting too is I sent you some links. One of the links was a Joe Rogan interview where he interviews Tom DeLonge, the former Blink 182 member who has the To the Stars Academy, where which came out in the Podesta emails at first, and he kind of went public right after that. But he's got a whole bunch of ex-government and ex-military people that the government has him on loan as consultants, and so he's got a lot of information for which we don't have. And he said on that interview, the section that I told you to watch, he describes how the crafts distort time, and where a sort of time travel is happening. Until we saw that, we still couldn't explain, well, how was the car there? How did we start? But then after we saw him describe it, he kind of does a thing. They could literally show up, take the Coke can out of one person's hands, put it in another person's hand, disappear, and you'd be like, "How did this get here?" And which, when you think about what that, anyways, that video now is gone. because I sent you the link, and then I went to test it, and it says it's now private.
I clicked on it, and it didn't work.
Now, I don't know if that's because Mr. Rogan's moving his podcast to another service, but a lot of his podcasts are still up, or it has something to do with the last showing of Alien Abduction, where I showed that.
Yeah.
It was in that clip, by the way, it was in the trailer, so the people who saw the trailer, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of interesting appearances in Alien Abduction, you may or may not have had a phone conversation with Bob Lazar in the film. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, Philomena and I wanted to drive to Michigan. It's like drive from Wisconsin to Michigan. You know what it's like, It's just to go and knock on his door, And Jared said, "Well, why don't we call him while you're here?" And because he'd want to come along with a kid to catch him. So if you're familiar with Bob Lazar, you can do the voice comparison for yourself. I swear I'm not Bob, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know if we were talking to Bob or not, but the gentleman sounded like Bob, but swore he wasn't Bob. But he wouldn't hang up. He wouldn't hang up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just kept like, yeah. No, I'm not Bob. I'm not Bob. No, he doesn't talk to anybody. And what? And what? No, he wouldn't hang up.
I think you offer to give him a hug or something is the best part of that as well.
Yeah, Bob. Because Bob, if Bob doesn't want to talk about this, I at the time I was being grilled by Jared, so I was in this pressure, poor Bob, it's like me, so I was feeling, for anybody who has to go through that kind of interrogation,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd give him a hug.
So would I.
And he's taken a lot of abuse for just trying to tell his story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a central one to current UFO belief or people's understanding of the UFO phenomenon. I think Bob Lazar's story, how true it is or how true it isn't, has certainly had a massive impact on the way that people talk and think about UFOs and UFO belief. But I had another question for you, which I think's pertinent to somebody who experiences this type of phenomenon, because I'm always fascinated with the type of impact that it has on people who undergo something so otherworldly, because it's so easy for people who haven't experienced something to just talk about it, just to talk about it hypothetically. But I can only imagine, as I mentioned before, the impact it must have had on both of you. But is it something still today that hangs over you? Like, are you concerned about having more visitations, or what other kind of impacts has it had going forward like that?
Well, we're hanging out, and obviously something we know something happened to us. We really don't need somebody to tell me it didn't and you're full of crap. I just don't need it. And what for? If you want to hear our, so we've been a little bit slow, and because if you watch the movie, Jared gets his next door neighbor over, who comes over, and the first thing he is, why not land at MIT why not land at MIT? And a week later, the top physics department at MIT is all connected to Jeffrey Epstein. Well, that's why, they're all compromised. Okay, next question. But it's like people don't think, well, I don't know. It's and then it's like, well, do you want to hear the story? No, I want to know why not MIT? That's all you wanted to know. Well, you got to ask the aliens. But a week later it came out. Well, that's why not MIT. You know what I'm talking about, Epstein Island, and
absolutely, absolutely, I do.
A certain really rich guy was giving money to the MIT guys, and then the video of them, including Stephen Hawking's on the island. The guy with yeah, it's really disappointing.
Sorry, you go. I apologize.
But anyway, so if they can compromise MIT, who else is compromised?
Yeah.
I think there's also this weird expectation that aliens would behave in a way that we would expect them to behave. And I don't even know, to be honest, whether I believe in extraterrestrial alien visitation, but I believe in an alien presence of some description interacting with people. So I have a problem when somebody doubts an experience because the aliens didn't behave the way that, well, they should have landed on the White House lawn. That would make more sense. Or they should have gone to MIT. If it's truly alien, if it's a different intelligence to us, who's to actually say how this intelligence will behave or who this intelligence will decide to interact with? And that's why, again, I found it fascinating, that vague similarity between you being a married couple and Betty and Barney Hill, and maybe there's something that attracts an alien presence which isn't what we would expect it to be attracted to as rational human beings. In other words, MIT, or in other words, the White House lawn. Maybe something else draws the focus of whatever this is.
Well, to talk about differences between Betty and Barney and Philomena and AV is our vehicle was locked in whatever radiation that these crafts put off, and locked in time and space. It's that we didn't pull over on the side of the road and see somebody and walk to it. they grabbed us while we were driving, and it's parked in the backyard. I got under a tarp. I got it. And so we've got everything, but we don't have anybody to show it to. We don't, from what I've read, if you went and said, oh, I saw a UFO, the thing they would do is test to see if you've got any radiation from being near it. Well, we were on one twice, but who would you trust?
Yeah.
So, so that's one of the things that's different about us and Betty. But back then, you'd go to the government, you wouldn't even think about it. Hey, I got aliens, right? Now you go, what the heck? Philomena touched the reactor on one of the reactors on the craft the second time we were abducted, and she burned her hand.
Yeah.
And they laughed at her, right? So I knew it wasn't life-threatening, but the next morning we're like, well, do we go to the doctor? What do you do? What went through her, so we called a friend who's a psychic, can you see anything? Because that, what do you do? Yeah, we were on a UFO last night, and my wife touched the reactor, center reactor, and burned her hand, and you can see I'm just saying, that's different. That's different. Betty and Barney would have went right to the emergency room, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's different times, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So have you guys ever...
Did I sound anxious? I'm sorry. I'm really not. That's why we don't talk about this,
Oh, well...
It's hard. I mean, but we would talk about it. I mean, but not we talk about things like, hey, did you see this in the news? Or what's so-and-so doing? That's what, life.
So have you guys ever experienced sleep paralysis? Kind of off the wall question, just curious.
Can you define that?
Do you know? Okay. Sleep paralysis is where you're supposedly asleep and your body cannot move, but you're completely aware of what's around you.
Oh, sure. Yes. Even farther than that.
Yeah. Well, I know that is kind of connected with alien abductions as well, because I've read that. And also telepathy, which you guys had mentioned. You both were speaking telepathically to each other as you're going up. And then you were speaking to the aliens, like back and forth like that as well. I had read somewhere that people that have those experiences with the sleep paralysis and the telepathy, a lot of it has to do with like the magnetic fields and the earth. I don't know if you've heard of Michael Persinger.
No.
He's actually come up with a it's called like a God helmet, and he's figured out that people are able to have paranormal experiences if their temporal lobes are somehow connected to some magnetic fields. And so he's linked the two together. So, I don't know if that has anything to do with alien abduction, but it's also a possibility because they do talk about that quite often. I'll have to send you a link. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's really cool.
Well, I'll say this. I myself believe that there are different planes of existence.
Oh, yeah.
That are non-physical and that can influence us, or that we can maybe access primarily maybe during REM sleep. So I'm familiar with when people say aliens visit them in their bedroom. I'm not doubting that some non-physical being, when they're in a non-physical sleep state, visits them in their bedroom and flies them off somewhere. I don't call that an abduction.
Yeah.
And magnetic field sounds, we think we have a portal in our home, so we shut the door to that room because we get sucked into it at night and have these, and I don't want to get into it, but
that's another segment.
So yeah, but we believe that we were trained on the astral plane before they stuck us on that machine, because I knew right away I'm on the machine. This is why I was trained. So that was one of the things that you kind of brought it up, and I think that's what you're referring to is, there are a lot of, if just the Bible is correct, and there's angels, there's fallen angels, there's demons, and there's different kinds of angels, and they don't look like people with wings. They look like battle bots, that according to the Bible, 2 seraphim angels killed 150,000 people when they destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, that's 2. So whether that's true or not, I'm just saying that if the non-physical exists, there's a lot of stuff out there, and scary.
No, I think that's a good point, and that ties into, I suppose, more of my perspective of what the UFO and the alien abduction phenomenon might be. Is it? Do you ever? I know, because you had such an immediate experience, which wasn't, as you said, when you were abducted, when you were driving in the car, the stranger out of body experience, laying in bed and being suffering sleep paralysis. So I can only imagine how immediate that must feel to you, and how it must almost seem ridiculous when somebody tries to step in with a more metaphysical explanation, like maybe I have, or maybe Jen's hinted at. But when you mentioned the demonic world, and when you mentioned biblical traditions of more potent spiritual entities, have you ever maybe stepped back and gone, maybe what we experienced, even though it was so immediate, was something that wasn't extraterrestrial in the sense that the science fiction movies tells us it's extraterrestrial, but maybe it was an otherworldly presence, which in our understanding appears to just be from elsewhere, but it's part of that broader kind of astral realm that you're talking about, for example, AV?
I think what's the most interesting, is before we get off into the astral, let's go back to the physical for a minute.
Yeah.
Now, when you research the Roswell wreckage, you'll see a guy with a whole bunch of shiny metallic sheet, and he's holding it, and later they say it was a weather balloon, but you can see it's not a balloon material. Now, according to people like Bob Bushman and Bob Lazar, that is a very thin little, like aluminum foil, but you can't cut it.
Yeah.
And it's wrapped around a frame. It's like you're in a pup tent. You're not in a rocket ship. You're like in somebody builds this little thing, and it's got, once you fire up the reactors, it's got its own atmosphere, its own gravity. It's independent. And what they do when they fire up is they pull the universe to it. Oh, there's a star, pull the star to it. So it's never moves. The universe moves to it. So that's how they travel so quickly. Now, if you read a lot of reports, oh, there's lots of these things. Because you and me, if we were on another planet, we could make one in our garage. Okay, you know, and when you really think about it, oh, you know, I live on a lake. Snowmobile went by, a four-wheeler, one with tractions, one with this on, one with that on. Well, why can't those guys, if they can buy the reactor and make a frame and get the, you know, science thing on their planet? You know, it's not like these things. And people say, oh, there's giant spaceships. Well, if there was, we'd see them on the telescopes, right? And why would they who'd want to live on a giant spaceship? We got some guys in tin cans going around doing experiments, but you know, I mean, anyways, so they're just to get from point A to point B. I would think that these people also, these extraterrestrials are a bit more advanced than us spiritually. I would hope, otherwise we'd be over in trouble. But I mean, when you think about it, you know, we're saying we know the difference between astral projecting, having a dream, and being in a tin can, you know, with the universe going by. You know, we know the difference, okay? And nobody's gonna tell us different. I used to have this friend in high school, and his mom was real defiant. She'd say, nobody tells me what to do. So, we're just kidding, but we're trying to make it fun. I'm sorry.
No, that's the American way. Nobody tells you. No, nobody should tell anybody what to do. You know, it's a very part of the American ethos, I think.
But the scenario may not be true. But that's, you know, when you think about it, well, it could even be that common that somebody could make their own craft if they had the right computer and the right training, if they're on a planet where all those things exist.
Yeah, it's not. It's certainly not impossible. Jen's laughing because she knows my constant metaphysical approach to, I guess, to the phenomenon. But I mean, to be honest, I'm more interested in hearing people's genuine experiences, because I can theorize all day long, but it's the experience which is interesting. So,
well, what was really interesting on the last visit, that in the winter visit where they left the markings, is they had fired some probes through our house, and the Philomena we've got like a third floor loft. It used to be an attic, but we kind of finishes off and we make films and stuff up there. Have you seen any of our Lego music videos?
Oh, I need to see them though.
So we have this video upstairs and we got the Lego set up, and there's a few of them. Are You Happy is one, if people like Legos. We're working on another one. And anyway, so she was up there and talking on the phone and not looking out the window, and I was sitting by a window, and I could see the flash of it landing, and the neighbors weren't home. There were no lights on outside. There's frozen lake behind my house. You have to go about 8-10 miles, and then there's a shoreline with houses, so there's no light back there. So it's just a flash. And at that exact moment, then through our kitchen area is all glass, and then there's a bathroom, and then where I was, again with windows against the lake. So these probes, these non-physical probes, came through that glass through the kitchen, and they ran through the living room, and then about 2/3 of them turned towards me, and another third went upstairs, and then they all spanned out and then dissolved. And there was about 3 or 4 different sizes. They were cylindrical, and my daughter made this for me. Anyways, it was cylindrical, and if you've watched, the closest thing I can say is if you've watched like The Wizard of Oz, when the good witch comes in on a little bubble. They were like bubbles, but they were different colors, and they had like a camera inside that was moving, that, you know, like an eye, and they went through and they it's like they scanned the whole house and made dimensions of it and everything, and then it's some kind of technology that was just mind-boggling. And I was telepathically told that's what they're doing. They're scanning the whole house, you know, and that's when I asked him, I need a picture of an alien. I mean, I was ready, you know. If I'm kind of, you know, that's what I'm going to ask for, you know. These people who say, "Oh, I've been abducted 100 times." Well, have you asked for like some evidence that you can show someone? Can you take a picture with me? I mean, if they would, that's why I know they didn't come off the craft, because we would have been like, "You're taking a picture with us. You're not getting away." Because the first time we ever thought of it, you know, you just don't think, you know. Anyways, I'm rambling.
No, it's interesting to hear, because I hadn't heard that additional experience. That's not talked about in the film at all.
Yeah.
Well, Jared doesn't really talk about the second experience much either. And he doesn't really talk about the first experience. He just tries to get us to fight.
Oh.
He really didn't give any of the story away. And at first I was like, you know, why didn't he ask us what it's like to be in a, you know, going at light speed, you know, in a craft?
Yeah.
That's what I would ask. What's it like? How fast does it feel like? You know? It's like, I mean, that's what a guy would ask, you know, and so he's like figuring a way to get us to fight. So you like to play golf, huh?
He just wanted the drama for good cinema, probably.
Yeah.
Well, it allows us to tell the story again, but more in depthly, and it allows people to maybe like us first. We were hoping, like, we're working on music, you know, that's our big thing. If you look us up online, you really won't see anything about alien abductions. You'll you know, you're going to change that a little bit, but you'll see us, you know, see what we do musically, and
yeah.
And we have all of those in the show notes for people who want to check out your website or your Facebook or your Instagram or any of those things. If they go to the show notes either on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever else this is, they can certainly go through or it's very easy to find you. You just have to really Google AV Super Sunshine and you get those hits anyway. So
right, and if they go to our website, there's some of our recent music charts are right on the front. So, oh look, they beat Justin Bieber and Chance the Rapper on the global AC charts last week. You know, we're number 7, by the way.
Fantastic.
We're doing real well on the global radio. You know, so it's like, whoa, you know, because it surprises me. Can't beat Justin Bieber and Chance the Rapper. You know, but their song "Holy." Weekend was number 1 because he got a Super Bowl bounce, bing, with his best song, which is the Blinding Light song. Yeah. You know, so we would have been number 6 if the Super Bowl wasn't that week. But you know, you get a Super Bowl bounce, everybody plays your song if you spend all the money. Right? And but so we, anyways, if they go there, there's a button called Charts and Press. There's a lot of press releases about people who review our music. But if you just go and do a Google search, there's a lot of reviews on our music. And our YouTube channel is probably the best place because we have the videos. And we do have some alien themed videos up there.
You do?
Yes, we do. We have a video called I Am Alien, and we have an I Am Alien dance video. Those are two. She's in the I Am Alien in both videos. She wears a green alien suit. It's great.
Yeah.
And then after I saw the Bob Bushman video, he talks about how he met the pilot who shot down that saucer, and that pilot said there was an alien who survived. Now, and then. So I called the alien who survived Gabriel, like the archangel. And I mentioned Boy Bushman, but there's a song called Starman, you know, where we talk about we're going to go to S4 and Area 51 and rescue Gabriel. Because if the people who do there's a lot of people who have done research on and know something about grays that we don't know. And they say they live about 3 to 400 years old. So and then when you read about it, it's like the 50 to 70-year-olds that usually go on the saucers because they're a little bit smaller. So if this guy was 70 in 1947, he's still alive in prison, right? somewhere, right? Then Area 51 in a cell. So let's go.
Well, yeah, according to the mythology, and I think that's something else we talk about in the Richard Doty interview. There's EBE or EB1 and EB. There's multiple extraterrestrial biological entities that the U.S. government supposedly had contact with. And Doty, I think, says he watched on a monitor, like he watched through a camera, an interview with another intelligence agent, I guess, from the U.S. Air Force, interrogating one of them. And the fascinating thing, of course, about Richard Doty is he actually genuinely was Air Force intelligence, although there's also probably spin in some of those stories. So it's always difficult to decipher. But speaking of the Super Bowl, as you said before, and this is a really terrible. Sorry, you go.
You said the Air Force. When we first started this, one of the guys who helped us was a guy in Nashville, and Marcel Chagnon. He's a filmmaker down there, and he was doing some work for this Air Force general's wife. So I get this call. Did you get my husband is a flyer, and he's seen so many UFOs. He can't sleep at night, blah, 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 blah. He's a general. So I get this general's call's wife, and then I'm talking to someone else, and they're like, yeah, blah, blah, blah is blah, blah, my blah, 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 blah is a general in the Air Force, and he's met an alien. You know, so there's a lot of stuff, and these are guys on the street, you know.
Yeah, there are certainly a lot of stories out there. It's always hard, I think, and it's the entire UFO story. It's always hard to find that signal within the noise because there's so many stories. You've got to say, where is that truth? Where are those things which I can rely on? And that's the hard part of deciphering it, I think.
I didn't mean to interrupt you when you got to the Air Force, but there's a lot of people in the Air Force that have seen stuff, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It's funny because one of my good friends, one of my best friends is in the Air Force, and we went, we were doctor. He would like kill. I mean, he'd get mad, you know. I mean, he really would, you know, if we said it, you know.
I hope he's not watching.
Yeah.
So like my dad's always, so what's the movie about? Oh yeah, you'll see it someday. Yeah. So we haven't shown this to anybody that we know. Nobody. Like my son, you know, I showed him part of the trailer, and he's like, what? You know, the first trailer, not the second. The first trailer is really tame. The second trailer is like, oh, who cares? Nobody's really, you know, it's kind of funny when you think about it. Like the neighbors, like the Schmitties, you know, the next door, we can go over and ring their doorbell if we had, and you can meet them, you know, and we could leave and say, they don't know that you just got a picture of that land on the ice. They were in Colorado at the time visiting their daughter. It's just because we hope, you know, where were you last week? Did you see anything?
Well, I think there's going to probably be more and more awareness. The more I think more and more people will probably hear your story, and that anonymity of being an unknown abductee. Although I mean, you're known in the music industry, but you're not known as an abductee. But there might be those two personas might become one the more this film gets out there, I think.
That would be that could be a lot of fun.
Well, you guys sure were a lot of fun, and we're over our hour, but we had a great time with you. I can't wait to see you both at Midwest Weird Fest, March 5 to 7, and I encourage everybody to come along and see Alien Abduction. That's for sure.
All right. Well, here. I just wore this. I do have hair, so the people who want to
know. you have to wear that hat to the festival. Thank you so much for coming on, guys.
I look kind of like Kid Rock.
I don't know.
You look just like Kid Rock.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see you guys later.
You guys were great guests. Right. Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right.
All right. See you later.
Bye now.
Thank you for joining us tonight. If you're interested in checking out more episodes, you can find us at talkingweird.com. If you haven't already, please like the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Talking Weird Podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to Talking Weird. We're available on most podcast platforms and YouTube. And if you do enjoy the show, please leave us a review. Dean and I would really appreciate it. Until then, stay safe and keep it weird.